gentlemen, please welcome Don Mann.
Go get it. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. Dr. Carberry and Colleen, thank you for the invitation to come here and speak, and thank you all for coming here. I just want to say a couple of things before I start my talk. Usually I do these talks, and it's to big businesses or corporations or schools or sporting teams, and that's fine with me. But what I really enjoy is when I get to speak with veterans or people, companies that try to help other people, charities, things like that. So when I met Dr. Carberry and I met Colleen, and I realized what they were doing and trying to help people and trying to help veterans by helping them heal without medicine and surgeries, I was all very interested in finding out more. And then I had some treatment done, and I've never been pain-free since the 80s, and I'm pain-free right now. For this type of treatment, I was in the military 21 years, and I've got quite a few friends who have committed suicide, and a lot of friends who are on all types of medications. Their lives are totally different now, and it doesn't have to be that way. And a lot of people who get surgeries don't have to get the surgeries. There are other options out there. So I wanted to bring that up. If I could do one last thing in my life, it would be to help veterans. And that's why I'm here. I'm sorry about this, but I wrote all this. I have about 8 injuries, and I'm always trying to push my body. And I've been pushing my body for about 45 years, and I plan on pushing it to the very end. And everything got harder and harder because this shoulder wouldn't work or this knee wouldn't work. Right now, being 100% pain-free and drug-free, I've got a whole new look on life now. I'm like 61 years old, and I'm looking forward to going hard for the next 10, 15 years. It's a nice, nice feeling. So this talk that I'm doing today, I'm going to use a lot of stories from being a SEAL, and a lot of stories from being in the government after being a SEAL, and a lot of stories from adventure racing and mountain climbing and things like that. But I'm not here to try to talk anybody into doing those things. They're just stories that I learned a lesson from, and I like to share those lessons. To start out with, I had a very easy career as far as a lot of people in the military. And I did 21 years with the SEAL Team, SEAL Team 1, SEAL Team 2, SEAL Team 6. But it was easy relative to the guys and the ladies nowadays who've been at war for most of their adult lives. It's a different story. As far as athletes go, as Greg can tell you, there's so many athletes who've done so many more things, so just climbed so many mountains and done these great big giant races. So I'm not here to talk or boast about anything I've done, because I really don't have anything to boast or brag about. But I do have some lessons I can take from these stories. And it basically comes down to, if you have a powerful mindset, nothing can stop you. That's all it really takes. It doesn't matter how fit or strong you are. If you have that powerful mindset, nothing can stop you. So I broke my life into goals. As a teenager, I was going nowhere, except for getting in trouble. But I looked at big, big, big goals. I wanted to do these big, big things. I had no clue how to get there. So then I decided to start doing these ultra-long endurance races. And I wasn't an athlete. So I picked this big, big goal and find micro goals to reach it. For instance, a marathon. A marathon's 26 miles. Everyone says, you're not going to run a marathon. So I had a micro goal of a mile, then a 5K, a 10K, half. And before you know it, you get a marathon done. Then you take that marathon down and make it a micro goal. Now you've got a marathon here for a micro goal, a marathon here for a micro goal, because now the macro goal is now 2 marathons that day. And that just kept going and going and going. And then my goal was to do all the big races in the world. The harder the race, the better. And this just worked. And it worked for me for every goal I set. I wanted to be a SEAL. I wanted to do the big races. I wanted to write a book. The story works for whatever part of life you're going after. If you're a doctor, if you're a lawyer, accountant, it works for everything. I used to have hair. It was a long, long time ago, and when I had it, it was black. But as a SEAL, I wanted to serve on the West Coast, SEAL Team 1. I wanted to serve on the East Coast, SEAL Team 2, and I was hoping to get to SEAL Team 6. And that's where I retired from. That's a worldwide commitment. So that worked for the macro goal setting. I just want to show you a picture of an assault team. An assault team, and I don't want to talk SEAL specific, this is military in general, but these guys and ladies who are deployed overseas, that was my assault team when I first got in. I was there with these guys for 300 days a year, and some of them get killed, and some get wounded, and some just don't come home. And you come home and you go to funerals and you go to hospital appointments and you deploy again. Your family has you for 60 or so days a year, and the guys have you for the other 300 days. That's how it's been going this last generation. I just want to show you that picture of an assault team because it's going to come back. As a writer, I had hoped to write a story for Navy Times. That was a macro goal. Actually, if I backed it up, my macro goal is to graduate high school English. And then it was to write a story for Navy Times. And then it was to write a book. And right now I'm just finishing book number 20. My high school teacher would be rolling over in a grave if she thought I'd be writing 20 books. So this just works in whatever you want to do in life. And as a runner, you know, I decided to be a runner. And then I ran 30 marathons in the next couple of years as a non-runner. I formed into a runner after doing these marathons. And I'm not here to bore you with these races, but I did over 1,000 of them after I decided to be an athlete. And they're all types of races. Road racing. One of the road races I didn't finish. I tried riding across the United States faster than anybody in the world. And it was 300 miles a day, and I did it with a friend of mine, and he quit on me, so I said, I'll just do it some other time. And I never did it. So that's one of the regrets I'll have for the rest of my life. But this list goes on and on. For mountain bike racing, I think my favorite mountain bike race was up in Alaska, doing the Iditarod Trail with this backpack and sleeping bag and tent on your bike in the middle of the winter and the snow and the ice. It's just pushing your body. I just love it. I still love it. I'm still doing it. It's just going slower all the time, but I'm still enjoying every bit of it. I did the same thing with paddling sports. Kayaking, rowing, canoeing, rafting. Actually, I just got back from Canada. I did a 750-mile paddle, and it took a month, 60, and it was the longest paddle I've ever done. I also went higher up in a mountain than I've ever been before over age 60, and gone faster on a bicycle at over age 60. So I'm not using my age as an excuse by any means. So this list just goes on, and I didn't put them all down, but I just want to show you a sampling of setting the macro goals, doing a big race, bringing it down, making it a smaller race, and then now it's a micro goal. And these are all single sports, And if something hurt too much, if I couldn't run, I would paddle more. If I couldn't paddle, I'd bike more. And this goes on. But after a while, after the single sports, they never got boring, and I loved every bit of them. I'd pick a race, and I'd train to do it, and bring it down, and then pick up a bigger race. But when the triathlon started, then it was very exciting, because now there's 3 events to train for. And it wasn't just a single event, it was 3 events. And this happened in the late 70s. And the first big triathlon anybody's ever heard of was the Hawaii Ironman. And it was a 2.4-mile swim and a 112-mile bike ride and a marathon, 26.2-mile run. So at one point in my life, that marathon was a big deal, but now it's just part of this Ironman. And I couldn't wait to get out to Hawaii and do one of the first Ironman. It was the biggest race in the world at the time. And I just went on and did triathlons for the next 15 years. Very seriously. That's all I thought about, was doing these triathlons. It was 3 sports. And then, as Greg Yetter can tell you right here, adventure racing started. And that made triathlons look like, yeah, that's okay, that's like a little walk in the park. But now we're going to take this backpack and we're going to go do a 500-mile race. And we have everything on our backs, and we're going to paddle, bike, swim, climb, hike, go to sleep deprivation, navigate, and do it with a team, and cross the line in hopefully 9 or 10 days. And that was super exciting. And the reason I thought that was so exciting is because it was really the only time in my life I could push myself to the point of bonking, hallucinating, vomiting. And I don't mean to sound disgusting here, but I liked to give everything I had towards something. And adventure racing did that. So then I moved on to mountaineering. And mountaineering, the first one up there is Mount Everest. I didn't summit. I went up there a couple years ago, and I didn't make that one. And then I've done about 30 or so mountains getting ready for Mount Everest. I'm going to talk about Mount Everest in just a bit. So reaching for big, big goals, if I didn't do that in my life, I wouldn't have gone anywhere. I know I wouldn't have gone anywhere. And I think the real tragedy for most people in whatever they do for work or sport is not that they set the goals too high and they don't make them. I really believe most people set their goals low and they reach those goals and they go home and they're happy with themselves. And I noticed this when I got out of the military, out of the SEAL teams. Everybody pushed themselves hard in the teams, in the military. But when I got out, I noticed a lot of people don't push themselves that hard. And it took me a while to try to get my head wrapped around why people don't push themselves hard. I didn't expect people to push themselves to hallucination or anything like that. But they would set their goals low, they'd do minimal amount of work and go home. I just couldn't comprehend that. They set the goals low. All that's lost potential. At the end of it all, you're laying there and it's all over for you. All that goes left unfulfilled. You had no chance at all of going to your full potential with that mindset. So I'm just talking about mindset right here. And I looked up to a lot of people in my life, and Reinhold Messner is the greatest climber in the world. Reinhold Messner, if he looked at that list of races I just showed you, he'd think, yeah, you like playing in the park, don't you? That's nothing. Here's what I do. I take that pack. I'm going up to that mountain up there in the Himalayas. It's never been climbed before. I'll do the north face of it in the middle of the winter. I'll go solo. I'll go without oxygen. I should be back in a couple of months. That's a sport. That's the hardest thing I think there is going on. And that's his mindset. And there's nothing different about him than there is between you and I. He just really knows how to push himself. And he's called the greatest mountaineer of the world, but right now they're starting to call him the greatest mountaineer the world may ever know. And he's climbed Everest, first person to climb Everest, first person to climb Everest without oxygen. He's crossed these deserts. He's climbed all the 25,000 foot peaks alone without oxygen. He's the greatest climber of all time. And it's because he knows how to push himself. Doing these races and climbing these mountains, you get to work out and train and associate with some really powerfully minded people. And I loved that. I loved that part. And I started learning more about myself, or learn more what I can get from myself. If a person has, the biggest lesson I learned, if a person had a powerful mindset, you say go, nothing will stop that person from trying to accomplish their goal. If the person doesn't have a strong mindset, you can't do a whole lot to help that person. First lesson I had as a teenager. I was just a teenager. I wasn't doing well in school. I wasn't an athlete. I wasn't doing anything. But I raced motocross. And I was hoping to be a pro somehow, someday. And a friend of mine was a pro. And he lived in North Haven, Connecticut. And I just lived south of him. He called me one day. He said, Don, you want to train with me? I said, my God, Dave, I'd love to train with you. And I went up to his house. He said, well, I run this lap. It's a mile long. I do it 10 times. We're both teenagers. I said, Dave, I'll do it. We both looked the same, both body, height, weight, everything was about the same with us both. And I was running with him. I think, oh my God, I'm going to do what he does and I'll become a pro. We ran 1 mile and it was hard for me. And I was thinking, I didn't like that so much. Then we ran the 2nd mile and I didn't like it even more. It was just less comfortable. And the 3rd mile, I said, forget this, I quit. And I sat on the grass and I quit. And I just watched him do all his other miles. And I realized that's the difference between someone who's going to go far and a nobody. Because he knows how to push himself. He was hurting on that run. He was breathing hard, his face was red, and I was comfortable sitting on the grass. And he kept going lap after lap after lap, pushing himself. He went on to become New England champion, and I ended up staying a novice. The only difference was his mindset. Everything else, I didn't know there was any other difference between us. So we did that, and I learned that lesson as a teenager, and it set my direction for the rest of my life to go. I just quit. I've quit a couple times in my life, and that was the first. And when I say a couple, I mean 2, and I'm going to tell you about them both. So Dave said he was disgusted with me. He said, if you are serious about being an athlete, you better start training. And if you want to get in shape, you better start running. Why don't you pick out a running race and run that? And that way you'll train for the running race. I said, Dave, I didn't even know they had running races. He said, yeah, they have them all over the place. I said, when's the next one? He said, it's in Boston, Patriots Day. It's called Boston Marathon. I asked him how long it was. He said 26.2 miles. I said, Dave, people don't run 26.2 miles. And he gave me a book, Dr. Sheehan's first book of running. And I looked at it, and I was thinking, boy, these people with liver transplants, organ transplants, prosthetic limbs, they run 26 miles, old people, young people. I'm a young guy, I should be able to run 26.2 miles. So all he promised is I wouldn't stop putting one leg in front of the other. That's all I had to do was promise that. No matter how much it hurts, you're not going to stop, one foot in front of the other. So I was able to finish Boston Marathon without stopping and without being a runner and not knowing how to run, not knowing anything about the sport, but just by putting my mind to it. And it worked. So that was the macro goal, Boston Marathon. 3:44, wasn't a very fast time, 3 hours and 44 minutes. But the next macro goal was, let's take 10 minutes off of that. Let's do another one next month. And that's why I did the 30 in that 36-month period. And it worked. And it worked out real well, and something was getting stronger up here. And what that was you put your mind to something, and you can accomplish it. It's just going to hurt, and I learned to welcome the pain. So I went out to Hawaii, and I met the first super triathlete on this planet. His name's Dave Scott. And Dave Scott, they call him the King of Kona. And before his first Ironman, I met him, and I said, Dave, how do you stay in such great shape? He said, Don, I just don't take any days off at all. So ping, I got his idea. I was thinking, I won't take any days off for training this whole year. So I worked out every day of the year. If I couldn't do a real workout, I had a half hour of minimal exercises I had to do. Pull-ups, sit-ups, push-ups, maybe a 3-mile run or something, at least 30 minutes. And that went on for a year. Then I did it the next year. Then went on for over 20 years. It wasn't that hard. Every day I have to brush my teeth. Every day I have to eat. Every day I worked out. So I never got out of shape. This mindset was getting stronger, and I started thinking I could put my mind to big things and accomplish them as long as I don't give up. That's all I had to do. So when the triathlon started, 2.4-mile swim, 112-mile bike race, 26.2-mile run, I didn't know any triathletes because only 15 people in the world had done one at the time. And I was a young guy in the Navy, an E3, and I called the race director out in Hawaii. She said you could stay at my house. It was that small back then. Now it's a billion-dollar industry. And I went out there, and I was thinking, I'm a runner now. I'm fit. I'm exercising. I didn't know anybody else who did this stuff. And I went to the airport there, and I flew into Honolulu, and I took my motorbicon bicycle out of the cardboard box. And I was kind of nervous, first time being away from home and everything, and I was walking my bike, and I'm getting ready to do the world's hardest race, and I'm walking my bike down through the airport, and I saw a guy, his blonde hair, super muscular and fit and tanned, with a beautiful Bianchi race bike next to him. I was shaking, I was getting scared looking at him. I wanted to go home seeing him. And that's not really him, but to me, that's what he looked like. And I walked around him so I didn't have to get near him. And he gave me a dirty look, like, what are you doing here in Hawaii? And I was scared. I really wanted to just go home. I wanted to quit before the race even started. And the next day we had to go check in our bikes. And my knees were knocking. I was holding my motorbicon bicycle, which cost over $100, which I thought was a lot at the time. And I was holding my bike, and I was afraid to look to my left because the waves were coming over the seawall and crashing onto the pavement we were standing on. I was thinking, oh my God, we got to swim in that tomorrow morning, 2.4-mile swim. I swam in that base pool a lot trying to get ready for this race, but I never swam in anything that looked like these waves here. I was scared to death. And then that blonde-haired guy and his friends were in front of me, and they're boasting about all the big races they've done. And he looks back at me, and he looked at my bike, and he said, are you in this race? I said, yeah. And he said, what's that? I said, that's my motorbicon. He said, motorbicon? What's a motorbicon? He said, what do you have on it? I told him what the components were on it. He said, this Bianchi here, my titanium pedals are worth more than your bike. Are you ready? Are you sure you're going to do this race? I mean, I was feeling that little. I wanted to go home. I felt like so undeserving to be in Hawaii getting ready to do the biggest race in the world. And anyways, his friends were saying, hey, leave the kid alone. So the last thing he said to me when he looked back, he said, so that's a motorbicon, and he laughed. So I went home, back to the hotel that night, and that just echoed in my head. So that's a motorbicon, and he laughed. I felt that little. I wanted to be home. I wanted to quit the whole sport. And we went out there the next day, and the race was starting. And his bike was next to my bike, and my bike was next to all those expensive bikes. Before I even realized there were expensive bikes, I was way out of my league. But something up here was strong. something up here clicked. There are 535 people on the starting line. I managed to get out of the water halfway or so, 275th, and whatever clicked stayed on for the rest of my life, because that was, you have 274 people in front of you, no matter how hard it hurts, you got to pass them all. I just put my head down and I rode. And I rode and I rode as hard as I could go. I learned to welcome the pain. Anything worth doing, it's going to hurt. Bring it on, because I'm going to pass every single person in this race. So I passed 25 people, passed 50 people, and then I saw the guy on that Bianchi. And he was up ahead of me. I said, oh boy, I'll get my composure, I'll pretend like I'm not hurting here. And I came up to him, and I said, so that's a Bianchi, huh? And I got to pass him. And it helped a lot. It was a big boost up here for me, and he was really kind to me after the race. He was like, and I beat him by over an hour too. So then I was thinking, wow, I mean, I can't get intimidated by people's biographies or their looks or the way they intimidate me. I can pass everybody in this race. So I just kept going, and I was so excited after passing that guy. Now I'm in 100th place or so, 75th place, and I had a poster in my bedroom from Sports Illustrated, and it was the original Ironman champion, Gordon Haller, who is still in touch nowadays. Gordon Haller won the original Ironman. He did it in 11 hours and 44 minutes. And I used to look at that, I said, how does he do that? He was on the Nautilus leg extension. I said, how does a guy do an Ironman? How does a guy win an Ironman? Then how do you do it in less than 12 hours, 11 hours and 44 minutes? I tried doing all the math, how fast all the events have to be. And my goal, the macro goal, was to finish the Ironman and to break his record, 11:44. It seemed like something I could try to do, even though I've never done anything like it before. So I was in 50th place now, and I saw a helicopter following a cyclist ahead of me, and I couldn't believe who it was. It was Gordon Haller. I was getting ready to pass the champ. I said, this is unbelievable. I got ready to pass him, and I nodded with great respect and said, have a great race, champ, and I passed him. And then, now, passing Gordon Haller, I was in the stars now. I was so excited. And now I'm in 40th place, and the marathon's half over. I've only got 13 miles to go, which seemed like that much now. 10 miles to go, 5 miles to go, and the crowd started yelling, watch out, the champ's going to get you. And I looked over, and Gordon Haller was trying to pass me, and I hadn't been passed yet. I was giving it everything I had, and Gordon Haller and I were just pushing it out as hard as we could. The world was going like this, and he was the only one, but he passed me right at the finish, right before the finish line, and he beat me. And we both ran into the water. We couldn't stop running, and he came up and he hugged me. He said, thanks so much for pushing me. And I said, oh my God, you don't know how much you've pushed me, you know. So that was Gordon Haller. And he did the race in 11:44. I tried breaking that time. I did 11:41, which shocked me. I had no idea what my time was going to be, but that was my goal. It was 11:41. That was my macro goal, to do an Ironman. 11:41, I started thinking, okay, that's only a half a day. That's a macro goal. If I could do one Ironman in a half a day, I should be able to do 2 in a day. So what I did, I brought the Ironman down to the micro goal level. And I'm not very smart. It seemed good on paper. It seemed like a good idea to do on paper. But so I went out. That was some of the earlier Ironman. I went out and I figured if I could do the 1 in a half a day, I'm going to do 2 in 1 day. So that's 4.8 mile swim, 224 mile bike ride, and a 52.4 mile run. 2 marathons. And at one point, a marathon used to be hard. But now I'm thinking, that's just 2 marathons at the end of this race. I should be okay. And things went fine in the water. The 224 mile bike ride, I got sore and tired and wobbly and all that. Then I was thinking, okay, 2 marathons to go. Got 1 marathon out of the way. All I have left is a marathon to go. About mile 32, I started seeing the white stars, and I started dry heaving, and it felt like a rib bone. I was choking up sideways. And I kept dry heaving, and I was seeing the white stars, and then I passed out on the lawn. And I went unconscious. And I don't know how long I was out, but not that long. But other cyclists were going by, and other runners going by, and I opened up my eyes, and I saw them going by. And I was wondering why I was sleeping outside. Then it dawned on me I was doing a double Ironman. I figured I better get up and finish. And I finished, got the medal and all. And I'm really, really fortunate and happy that that happened to me. Yeah, it tasted terrible, the bile and all that, and my legs, everything was sore. But all the times before that, when I thought something was too hard or I felt bad for myself because it hurt too much, I was wrong. Because if something is too hard, your body will do you the favor and you'll pass out, you'll get your break, and then you get up and finish the event. So it taught me another great lesson. And I told you early on that I'm not here to boast at all, because all I've done is a double Ironman. There's people who've done triple Ironmans, people who've done 5-time Ironmans, DECA, the 10 Ironman, 20 Ironmans, people like you and I. And then recently they had a 30X, 30 Ironmans, which is hard to comprehend, but that's 72 miles of swimming, much, much more than most people do in a lifetime, followed by a 3,360-mile bike ride across the US and a little bit back, and then a 786-mile run. Their micro goals are 10 Ironmans and 5 Ironmans. It's just people there's no difference between them and us except for their mindset. Mark Allen, who's one of the greatest heroes in the sport, he once said, "A man or a woman must at least once in a lifetime give everything they have to something." And Mark Allen I love his resume. First, did not finish. First, did not finish. Because he would push himself so hard if he wasn't in first that he'd often bonk and crash and not be able to finish the race. He gave everything he had. So Julie Moss, some of you may know of Julie Moss. She was a young woman. I was a young guy at the time. Actually, I had interest in dating her. I don't think she was interested in me, but I liked her a lot. And she was a young college student, and she did one of the early Ironmans. And she didn't know much about the sport either. She did a swim, she did a bike ride, and then she was coming across in the run, and what we call bonking, she bonked. She collapsed, she urinated in her pants, she defecated, she vomited, and she was crawling to the finish line. And people were running by her, looking at her like scared, and she didn't know how to quit. And Julie Moss is why the Ironman is what it is today, because ABC Wide World of Sports captured her. Look at that person, she doesn't give up no matter what. And she's inspired me so much all my life. So in adventure racing, we realized that if you don't have the right mindset, if you're not willing to push yourself that hard, you're not going to go anywhere in the sport. But I take that way beyond adventure racing or mountaineering or all these other sports. I put it toward life as well. If you're in a hotel or if you're going in the park here and you see people jogging, and they're talking, or they're on a treadmill watching the news, we call that conversational pace. It's easy, it's relaxing. You don't get a whole lot accomplished really, but it's better than sitting on the couch. Race pace is you're going so hard, you can't talk to the person next to you because everything you have in you is to go forward. Race pace hurts, but it makes the non-race pace times all the more comfortable. It's training yourself at race pace for a specific goal or mission or objective and then backing off. But give it your all to reach that and then back off, because you can't stay at race pace forever because you'll simply burn out. It's going way out of your comfort zone, way beyond what you thought you could do. And sir, if you don't mind, would you tell me how old you are? Yeah? 17? I wish I understood some of this stuff when I was your age. I really do, or even younger. I didn't. It took me a while to learn all this stuff. I just did things to be comfortable. But race pace hurts, but you get a lot more accomplished. And it's just really getting everything out and reaching to your full performance. It's called reaching for the line. And it's an imaginary line that I keep up here, and I think if I go too hard and I go over that line, I'm going to hurt myself somewhere. If I go too hard, I go over that line, I'm going to bonk. If I go too hard at something and go over that line, I'm going to have a marital problem or some sort of relationship issue. If you go too hard for too long, something's going to break. When I was a little older than you, I didn't see it that way. I would push and push and push, and I wouldn't feel satisfied till I went over that line and I was bonking, defecating, vomiting, or hallucinating, or passing out. I didn't feel, and my teammates, I wouldn't let them feel good about themselves unless I could push them that hard as well. And training people to be SEALs, I wanted them to push themselves that hard. But I learned that's not the right way. I think now, if we identify where that line is, if you're a cook, if you're a doctor, if you're an accountant, if you give too much to something and you go over that line, something's going to give, something's going to break. But why not identify it, touch it, and back off? And then you don't have that big place go voided. And you can reach that full potential. So I didn't always think that way. If I didn't push myself hard and something bad happened to me, I didn't think I was giving it my all. Touch the line and back off right now. If you saw this guy here sleeping, you probably wouldn't think much of him. He doesn't look super physical or anything. In my opinion, that's the greatest athlete in the world. In my opinion, that's the greatest athlete the world's ever seen. That's Reinhold Messner after coming off a climb. He bonked pretty hard. He wasn't able to move for about a week, but he knows how to do that, and he is, in his sport, in his life, what is being called now as possibly the greatest this world will ever see because of this mindset. So Dave Horton, who lives in Virginia where I live, he once said something to me. He said, Don, don't take this just as a runner. But if you want to test your body, go run a marathon. Thousands of people go run marathons to test your body. It's a good thing to do. Not many people do the next step and go the next level. Go ahead, test your mind. Do a 50-miler, test your mind. And again, it's not just in running, it's an analogy. He said a lot fewer people test the mind. It's a really small percentage of people who push themselves even further, and they push the spirit by doing an ultra, doing a 100-miler. I got to train some remarkable people over my lifetime and race with remarkable people and serve different SEAL teams and in the military with remarkable people. I think one of the strongest people I've ever had the honor of training with was a woman who was 10 years older than I am. She's from Austria. She didn't look strong, she didn't look tough, she didn't look like she could do anything. She was just a beautiful woman from Austria. My teammate said, Don, don't pick her for this race. She's too old. We saw her bonk real badly on an eco-challenge race once, and she was, same thing, defecating, vomiting, urinating. And she didn't eat enough food. She doesn't bring enough food to the races. You don't want her. And she wanted to be on my race team for an 11-day race in South Africa. I said, Angelica, myself, my teammates are concerned that you won't bring enough food and you're not going to have enough energy and you'll bonk. And she said to me in that beautiful Austrian accent, she said, Don, don't worry about me. I will not die on you. I might feel like I'm going to die, but my body will eat from itself. And she told me that, and I got goosebumps. I'm thinking, this is greatness. That's a powerful, powerful woman right there. I said, you're on the team, only because she told me that. She was so strong. I had 2 other SEALs on the team and a Special Forces major, myself, 4 of us. I would say she was our strongest teammate because of her mindset. We learned so much from that woman. She was powerful. She's bonked before. We've talked about bonking a lot. We talked about pushing yourself too hard. To steal from the mountaineering community, yeah, you push yourself too hard, you end up in the death zone. Bad things will happen. But why not identify the line, push yourself up to that line, and just back off? Bonking, it's not so bad in the athletic world. But if you decide just to stay down here in conversational pace, you'll be happy, you'll be relaxed, you'll go to bed, you won't be sore, you won't be tired. Not much else is going to happen though. If you took your fingernail and just rubbed it on the side of the chair over and over and over, it'll eventually get loose and then brown, then black, then you have to peel it off. When you're running up and down mountains for 7 or 8 or 10 days, that happens to your toenails inside your boots. They fall off, and it's a painful thing. And I was on the side of a cliff, and I was taking off my 7th toenail, and Angelica reprimanded me. She says, in that beautiful Austrian accent, Don, what are you doing? I said, I have to take off my toenail. It's coming off. She said, if you were serious about this sport, you'd have those toenails removed before the race, have the skin sewn together so they don't grow back. And she was serious. And she was a beautiful woman up until you saw her toes, then not so nice. She was hardcore. Not having toenails is not a big deal. Reinhold Messner didn't have toes. They came off frostbite injury he had. But he climbed all those mountains and crossed all those deserts without toes. There's my buddy Carlos Melita. I was with in Panama when he was shot. He was a SEAL on the runway and he got shot 3 times. He's actually, I heard from him last week. Now he wants to take his wheelchair up to Everest. I'm going to be on his crew if my pulmonologist will allow me. But Carlos has won 5 Ironmans. Just went up Kilimanjaro in that wheelchair. And he doesn't have movement from here on down. No toenails, no big deal. No toes, no big deal. He's one of the most accomplished people I've ever known in my life, and he doesn't have movement from here on down. He wrote to me last week, asked me if I'd go up to base camp to Everest with him. Those are the people who inspire me. People like that. So, right there, Sir Edmund Hillary, the first to climb Everest, if he was in this room with us all, he might not be saying, let's talk about how we can climb a mountain. Let's talk about how we can conquer a mountain. What he would probably be saying is, let's just talk about conquering ourselves. Let's get everything we can from our own bodies. That's how he thought. We went out to Grand Tetons a few years back and did a hard climb, a 2-day climb. We did it one day, and it was in a storm, and did it with some good mountaineering people. And we were all proud of ourselves, patting ourselves on the back and all that. Like, yeah, we're tough mountaineers. We had good gear, we're all fit, we had the right clothing and everything. And then Nancy Stevens comes down, and she did the same thing we just did, and she didn't have all the right gear. She wasn't an athlete, and she is totally blind. And that's the people I'm talking about here, Nancy Stevens. So guys who like the same things I like, that type of sports, you know, you have all these goals, and at some point Everest ends up on a macro goal list. And I want to climb Everest. And there's a lot of things you have to do to climb Everest. You have to save up a lot of money, have 70 days off, and be ready for the altitude, which you can't really train yourself to be ready for altitude. And then you have to climb a lot of mountains. 2014 was the most dangerous year ever on Everest. 2015 was worse. And then I was going out in 2016, so we expected it to be worse. So I had the macro goal of climbing Everest, to summit Everest. And I was ready. Still 60 years old, but I didn't care about that because I felt ready. I was very, very much ready. And it was pursuit of everything I went after. I put everything else in my life as a micro goal. Next macro goal is to climb Everest. The reason 2014, 2015 was so dangerous was so many avalanches and an earthquake, and it just killed a lot of people up there. And then people die all the time from other things as well. So I was ready, and I was welcome the pain, just be prepared and go. And on your way up, if you read the book Into Thin Air or saw any of the Everest movies, that Sherpa right there behind me, he's the most famous Sherpa in the world, Anje Dorje Sherpa. He saved so many lives up there, and he is really the reason Everest climbing is so popular now, because of people like him can get people up there. But when you go up, the monks bless you, and they put all these blessings around your neck and scarves and beads and things. They know not everybody's coming down. And you're going up, and it's getting serious. And now you can hear all the avalanches, and left and right and in front of you. And people on my team, the year before, they had tent mates killed because they were in the tents when the avalanches came through and killed everybody in the tents, and they just happened to be out of the tent. But we had a strong team, and we were feeling good. One of the girls on our team was the first woman ever to climb Everest without oxygen. That's what an avalanche looks like, and they're powerful and they're scary, and you can't do anything about them. You just have to try to avoid them. But so we're worried about the avalanches. We're also worried about crevasses, where if you see one, you can step over it, but if there's a small snow bridge on it and you step on it, you can go down, disappear 2 miles down. And there's the avalanches, hypothermia, your body freezes, frostbite, altitude mountain sickness, and then the 2 deadly things up there that's killing a lot of people and almost got me was high altitude pulmonary edema, the HAPE, and high altitude cerebral edema. I don't want to show any disrespect at all to Green Boots, but that's Green Boots right there. You can see his boot there. And when you go by him, you cover him up with a flag or something, because there's 200 bodies up there that aren't coming back. And it's intense. It's everything I wanted. It's intense. One of the most dangerous places on Everest are the ice falls. And they have these aluminum ladders that are 16 feet tall or horizontal, depending on which way you're going. And you climb these things with aluminum crampons, and you have all this gear on. You're having a hard time breathing because you're up high in altitude. And you're climbing up these things, and then you cross over them. And some people up on Everest, believe it or not, are afraid of heights, and they'll go on their hands and knees and cross over the horizontal ones. A 16-foot ladder wobbles a lot. When they tie 2 of them together, it wobbles a lot more. They were tying 5 and 6 together. And you get on, and the whole thing's wobbling, and you look down 2 miles far. Everything was intense. Unfortunately for me, when I got on the ladders, it looked like to me it got real cloudy out all of a sudden. But it was a bright sunny day, and my brain cavity was filling with fluid. And so it looked like it was getting dark. And then I lost my memory. Then I didn't know where I was, and then I didn't know what I was doing. And then it kept getting real dark, almost black. And I didn't know what was happening. When I put my head down, fluids were pouring out of my nose and my mouth, just out of the blue. That's the pulmonary edema. And I could take a breath, and I could hear all the gurgling in my lungs. And I got to the top of one of these ice walls, and Andre came up to me, the Sherpa, and he said, "Are you okay?" I said, "I'm just having a hard time breathing." And then I passed out. And then he got me some help, and long story short is I held a guy's shoulders with his oxygen, passed out a bunch of times on the way back, and we got to an ice wall. He said, "Can you rappel?" I said, "Of course I can rappel. I've rappelled all my life." We had to rappel down a 100-foot wall. And I had my harness on, and I took the rope, and I looked at it, and I totally forgot how to rappel. So I saw a Sherpa do this. I just wrapped the rope around my arm about 5 or 6 times, and I just jumped off, releasing one loop at a time, hoping I wasn't going to pass out along the way. Made it down, and our doctor got medevaced, our other Sherpa got medevaced, so I didn't have a doctor. And they went and they found this woman who an avalanche had come down, and one of the rocks had hit her in the leg. She was a doctor, and she sewed up her own leg and went on saving lives. They found her, and she came to save my life, which is blessed to have someone like her saving me. But so yeah, I came back, and it was, it took a little bit of time to recover for that. And people say, "Don't you feel bad about going? Wasn't that a stupid thing for you to do?" I am so grateful I had the opportunity to go after that goal. I mean, I would have hated to have been the person who said, "I should have done this, I could have, I would have." I went after it. My body said no, but my mind didn't say no. So Winston Churchill once said, "Success consists of going from failure to failure without ever losing enthusiasm." I didn't lose any enthusiasm at all. I was told I can't go up at altitude for a while, so I was thinking, okay, I'll find something else to do. So I had a bicycle built with a 90-tooth chainring, which looks like another wheel, and I'm trying to hit 60 miles an hour at that. And I went 52.3 miles an hour so far, it's the fastest I've ever been, and then went out to Canada to do a reality TV show and did a 750-mile paddle. So it's not changing me or discouraging me in any way at all. Actually, I think it made me a stronger person. If you don't mind, I'm going to read something to you. A climber is not intimidated by a mountain, but he's inspired by the mountain. And a winner is not discouraged by a problem, but challenged by the problem. Mountains are created to be conquered, and adversities are designed to be defeated. Problems are sent to be solved. It's better to master one mountain or one macro goal than a bunch of little micro goals or small foothills.